Welcome, listeners, to another fantastic episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. My name is Noah Hansen, here with Kevin Peterson today. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Wisdom knows understanding and knows why it understands it. I am doing a wonderful and blessed and feeling great.
Sounds good to me. And yes, wisdom is all those things. Wisdom understands. And we're hoping that you can listen closely to this podcast and get some golden nuggets of wisdom through these teachings, which Kevin and I have picked up along the way of life. On the last podcast, which was Fundamentals of Personal Security, we touched on many different points of what it means to be a secure individual, to be whole and complete as a person, to not take things personally. For example, to be able to look past the awkwardness of a situation and actually get to the real stuff, understanding that awkwardness is just a barrier that has to be overcome in order to have real opportunity for productive conversations with people, conversations where you can understand them better and they can understand you better. Not shying away from who you are as a person and not shying away from different challenges such as awkwardness in life. In this podcast, we're talking about the power of understanding. It's the first in what's going to be several different power of podcasts. So we wanted to start it off with the power of understanding because it has a lot to do with the fundamentals of personal security, doesn't it, Kevin?
Well, yes, and deals a lot with the truth.
Indeed. How can you have understanding without the truth? Well, you can feel like you understand something. You can believe that you understand something. But if it's not the truth, then what are you understanding? Well, you're understanding a lie.
Right.
And no one wants that. No one wants to believe a lie and change their worldview, change their actions based on a lie. Everyone wants to be rooted in what's real and what's true. And that's what's so important about this podcast, because we're bringing you information that we have found to be truthful. We have found by example to be truthful in the lives of ourselves, as well as our mentors, as well as the people that we've been able to teach, train, motivate, direct, and guide in life. So these tips really do work. So we want you to listen closely and understand this podcast for what it is. Not only that, but then go forth and apply it to your life and be able to share these golden nuggets with your family, friends, and loved ones. So Kevin, to start it out, you are a understanding guru, for lack of a better term, because you have mastered being able to, in communication, reach a level of understanding with people that transcends many different barriers that would otherwise separate you from another person.
Yeah, and the first three is emotional, second one, physical, third is spiritual, right? So being able to talk to you from the soul out helps a great deal, and not only enabling you to be able to understand what I'm trying to say, but for you to be able to adopt, to be able to adhere to, and to be able to literally embrace in a new way information that you can apply today.
Yes, on the last podcast, we talked about how reaching the source, going back to the source, having a foundation in the source is a very important step to even having security. And without security, you can't have understanding.
Right. So the affirmation of today is, my understanding of truth deepens and directs my life.
I like that one. Reflect on what understanding of truth you have in your own life and let that be a strength. Really build on that.
Understanding is the ability to know, perceive, and apprehend the information. The disciple is the person that applies the information in a way that benefits both people. It's hard. It's not quite easy. But if you take yourself out of the equation and look at it through a new, fresh set of eyes, it allows you to be able to perceive information in a new way. That perception would be then more of the authentic truth as to what the person is trying to imply or say, or to be able to direct you to do.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So if you are in communication with someone, even if they are not reaching a point of personal security in conversation, you can still reach a point of understanding in yourself, understanding where they're coming from if you apply these steps.
Right. Now, applying these steps, you've got to have one very solid thing, a foundation. Build something to stand on. You've got to be able to have a starting point, a starting line, and a finish line to what you're trying to be able to say and do in life, in all things in life. So, build something to stand on. Understanding is important in developing our spiritual nature because it is a faculty that puts feet under our prayers and gives our spiritual activity something to stand on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and a great foundation, great part of a foundation, I should say, something that could be integrated into many different types of foundations, is the intention to be able to benefit both your life and other people's. And this works especially, what we talked about in the Go Giver video that I created on A New Way with Noah, is how it's a new way of doing business where you're not looking for personal benefit, personal prosperity alone, but you're looking for the highest good for everyone involved in this business negotiation. It's a whole new way of looking at negotiating, but it's one that works, and many people have found to work better than selfish intent in business.
Yeah, because blind faith, faith without understanding of the spiritual laws, may get results on occasion, but our spiritual growth demands a base that is more dependable, understanding, that is grounded in spiritual truth.
Okay, so this spiritual law, are you talking about the 10 Commandments? Just moral guideline, moral laws?
Let's break it down simpler. I'm talking about every vowel of every syllable of every noun, adjective that Jesus Christ says is a foundation.
Oh, yeah.
When Jesus talked, people listened because what he said was immediately from once it came out of his mouth, applicable to anyone that he talked to in the audience.
Right. Not only applicable, but revolutionary.
Yes, but it didn't require education. It required a picturing in the mind the outcome to come.
Right. And it was quite a beautiful outcome because, Christianity, the early state of Christianity combated slavery, combated infant genocide. There's a lot of Romans that were getting rid of their babies as soon as they were born. It combated so many issues in culture that kind of put people lower than other groups of people.
Yes.
And it made everyone, including women, large part, that's another huge one, is it included women as equal heirs of the kingdom of God and people worthy to actually proclaim the gospel, proclaim the truth. In Jewish culture prior to that, women were seen as someone who cannot speak with authority on these types of spiritual topics.
Correct.
So it was extremely revolutionary, and it built bridges of understanding between whole groups of people, even whole sexes of people.
Yeah, because the awakening of our own faculty of understanding starts with questioning.
And I'm sure they had lots of questions when they first heard Jesus.
Questioning the old ways of thinking that may have been taken for granted. You have to understand that understanding begins with questioning. We need to be able to question everything and why. Because everything that is brought before you, if it isn't Jesus appointed, is then worldly. For walking, talking, sound Christians of whatever faith you want to be able to believe in, there is almost like a biblical code. We, as Christians, try every day to be able to only speak that of what can enhance you, can benefit you, that can be able to be rejoiced within you to be able to receive from another. It's called planting seeds, right? But when you fail to read the Bible or to be able to know the stories within the Bible or to be able to know Jesus' walk, if you have all these different factors that are completely askew from your life in general as well as your mind, so will your truth be.
Yeah, and you know what I find amazing, Kevin, is that there are so many people that wouldn't even call themselves followers of Jesus, but yet they live in such a way that they're living by his principles, they're living by his teachings in the way that you're talking about. They are trying to bridge the gaps. They're trying to reach points of personal
clarity,
of understanding between people, and also benefit other people's lives, putting themselves as a servant, which was a large in part message of Jesus.
Yeah. And let me make this hot topic bullet point.
Okay.
Understanding is different from wisdom.
Okay.
How, Noah?
Well, thank you for asking, Kevin. And understanding is different from wisdom. Well, wisdom is something that it can be expressed without saying a word. It can be something that it's just a state of being. It's a state of understanding within your own self. It doesn't involve another person. Understanding, you're bringing in another party there besides just you and God. You're bringing in other people into that. You're trying to understand others. And it comes with wisdom. Wisdom is a part of it. But to reach points of understanding in conversation and in relationship, that's a whole nother ball game. It's built onto wisdom.
Yeah, because Charles Fillmore defined wisdom as intuitive knowing, spiritual intuition. I'll say it again. Charles Fillmore defines wisdom as intuitive knowing and spiritual intuition, and understanding as the ability of the mind to apprehend and realize the laws of thought and the relation of ideas to one another. It's the Revealing Word, Unity Books from 1959.
Okay, so wisdom is something that you learn. Understanding is something that it's more of an action.
Yes. Again, Charles Fillmore defines wisdom as intuitive knowing, spiritual intentions or intuitions, and understanding as the ability of the mind to apprehend and realize the laws of thought and the relation of ideas to one another. So to break it down simply is that one person says one thing, another person says another, and another person says another, right? Now, you have to be able to blend all three of those to be able to get bite-sized pieces of the authentic truth from each one of those segments to be able to then come together in a pie form, all of the pieces together to be able to form one layer or level of truth, right?
Yes, yeah, and understanding is a comprehension of what's being said in the first place.
Yeah, to put it more simply, wisdom knows, understanding knows why.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yep.
So, wisdom knows, understanding knows why. When your understanding is developed in both head and feet, not only will you have the light in mind, but you will also have the ability to apply it in your world at that time.
Mm-hmm. And here's a good example. A wise person, even if he does not have understanding in a certain conversation or situation, a wise person is wise enough to keep his mouth shut, for example. To keep his or her mouth shut, to not speak where he doesn't have understanding, he or she doesn't have understanding. Whereas understanding is actually having the knowledge now to make a response.
Yeah. The other thing that is very powerful and very enlightening is a meditation on the power of understanding. The reason why meditation is important, but there is different forms of meditation.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to talk about just one.
Okay.
I'm not going to be talking about the empty meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the full richness of meditation, which is a communication between you and Jesus Christ, right?
It's allowing yourself to resonate with God.
Correct. So, in this moment, I call upon my spiritual gifts of divine understanding for insights into the daily journaling journey of my life. Okay?
Yes, if you're not writing a book of life, then you have most likely a shortcoming in understanding of your own life. That's why we talk about it so much. It's important, you know.
So if I'm not sure of the path to take, which decision to make, or what word to say, I allow spiritual understanding to guide my mind and heart. Understanding takes me to deeper levels of compassion, non-judgment, and connection to others. I use the faculty of understanding to see beyond human appearances and into the light of truth. I perceive and am grateful for the gifts, the joys, and the presence of the divine in every event or circumstance within my life.
Mm-hmm. So this meditation can be acted upon. It can be expressed at any point throughout your day. It's almost like when Paul was saying pray continually. He's almost entering into that type of meditation.
But the end goal with this is, with spiritual understanding, I see myself and others with compassion.
Mm-hmm. It's a non-judgmental.
Yep.
And it's important to realize that to reach points of understanding, it's not as if someone else has to be always on the same page as you.
Correct.
To reach points of understanding, it can be a one-person situation, but it's something that will always benefit both parties because it's, like I said, non-judgmental, and it's looking out for the benefit of more than just yourself.
Yeah, because the power of understanding is the final weapon that unlocks all potential reality.
Yeah, now they say knowledge is power.
But truth is more powerful than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no fight. There is no anything negative or demonic. It is all symphonic as far as how you receive it, right?
Right, it's a symphony of...
So instead of having information filter in from one ear and go to the next, it literally then stays within the brain to stop you from going insane, to be able to make an intelligent, well-informed decision at that very moment that you adopt it into your life.
Yeah, listeners, did you know it could be that fast? Did you know you can enter into personal authenticity that quickly? You can actually be who you're meant to be at the drop of a hat, if you so choose to, if you have the wisdom to be able to take a step back and choose that direction, that redirection from, just going with the flow, going with the feelings.
Because developing successful relationships is critical to our success in both our personal and professional lives. Without it, we are only as good or as bad as the people we hang around and socialize with.
Right.
That's where, in the Bible, there are hundreds of examples of this. And so I would encourage you to be able to look up the power of understanding in the Bible and see what it has to say. Because if it wasn't important, Jesus wouldn't have done what he did to be able to save us from our sins. He would not have been able to hear us. He would not have been able to see us. He would not have been able to feel what humans go through, right?
Right.
So that is not only on a all your faculties, your sight, your hearing, your smell, your feeling, right? But it's also through word form as well. Jesus was exemplary, excitingly, almost romantic with his words, because he gets you to be able to think in picture form what he's trying to be able to portray. Yeah. Now, the pictures that are in your mind are so unique, like your fingerprint, that it becomes almost romanticized, or it almost becomes something so personal, so intimate, so delicate to be able to keep to oneself, that many people, once they hear his word in truth, then can immediately apply it and know that it works, because he's actually the living example of it. He's actually doing it. You don't have to question, is he doing it or not doing it? Is he just talking about it? You get the full, rich flavor of Jesus by being able to see him in action doing it. So the end goal with this whole thing of proper communication in general, is that it helps you to be able to live a rich, fulfilled life. It allows you to be able to get out of the victim mentality life and lifestyle. It gets you out of the, I wish, I hope, I'm dreaming of type mindset. It gets you out of all this slavery talk that we self-embed into us and then point to another human being and blame them for it.
And you know what Jesus was a master of, other than literally everything? He was a master of active listening.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about active listening a little bit.
Yes.
It's so important in the power of understanding to reach a point where you can listen to someone to understand, not listen to respond, not listen for your own benefit and your own input, not thinking ahead to your own what you're going to say in response, but actually taking the time to sit back, to focus on the person that's speaking to you, and to actually listen to what they're saying, to comprehend, to understand where they're coming from, to reach higher levels of understanding of where that person is sourcing their words from.
Yeah. So active listening as a whole is the practice of preparing to listen. You have to prepare first to listen.
Right. Yep.
Then you have observing what verbal and nonverbal messages are being sent, and then providing appropriate feedback for the sake of showing alternativeness to the message being presented. This form of listening conveys a mutual understanding between speaker and listener.
Yeah, and you know what? Jesus in his life, if you read the Gospels, there's many accounts of places where he already knew where someone was coming from. And this was because he's God. You know, he can read our thoughts. He can understand our hearts. He knew where these people were coming from, if they were being genuine, if they were being ingenuine, before they even asked a question. And he was able to respond not for his own benefit necessarily, but to actually lead and direct and guide him and other people who were listening and witnessing these conversations to the proper conclusions, to teach important points about God, about the kingdom of heaven, about, about all these powerful teachings, to teach them in a way where people can comprehend it, can understand it at their level.
Yes, because active listening is a way of listening and responding to another person that improves mutual understanding. It is an important first step to diffuse the situation and seek solutions to problems. This lesson gives students the opportunity to identify what active listening is and why it's important in managing conflicts. So when we talk to our clients, when we talk to people out on the street, when we talk to those people that call us or email us, we often have to be able to go through this cycle of events so that we have proper communication and understanding simultaneously, so that in the center becomes the solution that they are looking for, not our agenda trying to be able to create within them, right?
Yes.
So some people just want to be able to be better communicators. Other people want this or want that. I mean, whatever you can fathom or imagine, we've got clients that we help with all different topics. But the power within it has to be able to be acknowledged and recognized that it's not a sole entity doing it. You're always that team. You're always a team player if you truly believe in Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior.
Yes.
Because you can be able to call upon him. He can give you wisdom, insights. He can give you knowledge and understanding that is way above your own understanding. And sometimes you can be able to get into a conversation with someone and have not the foggiest idea of what you said, but know that Jesus was speaking in through you and to you, and then to that other person through what you call a vessel. And so that's also important.
Yes, and can you reach a place where you're doing this if you haven't reached the point of belief in God and belief in Jesus yet? Well, I would argue yes, because everyone has mentors in life. Everyone has teachers in life. And even if you're not calling upon God, which I would argue is a highly more powerful scenario than what I'm about to portray, someone who doesn't have that relationship with God yet can actually call upon memory of what he's been taught, memory of how people have set the right example in his life, and actually call upon that wisdom by taking a step back and thinking of it, remembering it, and applying that to their life moving forward. It's the same type of situation. The only difference is when you're calling upon God rather than a mentor who you talked to in the past, you're calling upon someone who is actually right there with you in that same situation at that same time.
Yeah. Now, for me personally, my go-to person was my dad. I love my dad tremendously, still do. My father really was an exceptional teacher, trainer, motivated director, and guide, because he didn't babysit me. He didn't make things easy for me. He didn't try to be able to go out of his way to be able to come up with the solutions on my behalf. He helped me as a team to be able to mold me into being able to come up with the solution all within myself, right?
Yeah.
Here are the 5 things in active listening that he was exceptional at. So he was able to pay attention and give me the undivided attention and acknowledge the message that I was trying to portray.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was able to show that he was listening, and then he was using his own body language and gestures to show that he was engaged in what I was saying. Then he was able to provide positive feedback that was inspiring, that helped me to be able to think even deeper and even farther into my own understanding.
Wow.
Then he was able to defer judgment. So if there was something that I said or did that was not quite positive, instead of beating me up for it, he said, that was a great life lesson learned. Now let's move forward together and not do that ever again. Mm-hmm. So that deferring of judgment is he was allowing Jesus Christ to be able to give me the punishment or whatever that was justifiably need to be done at the time, right? And then the last thing was he was able to respond appropriately to everything that I was saying and doing. His mannerisms, his gesturing, the way that he listened, the way that he would literally recite back to me the questions that I was asking. So you're saying this, and he would repeat it back. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, clarifying questions. Very good.
But then, with his body language, he was shaking his head up and down for yes or side to side for no, right? Mm-hmm. Just trying to get the clarifiers, right? And then last but not least is that no matter what I said, no matter what I did, I was not ever judged or punished for the truth. He literally, totally gave me complete freedom. Instead of a switch and instead of a belt, he gave me a Bible. And that changed my life forever, because he says, if Jesus isn't causing you punishment, neither shall I. So that always stuck with me all the days of my life. So I learned not to be able to punish myself, not to beat myself up, not to be able to blame myself for listening to, adhering to worldly people and expecting a godly result.
Right, right. And that doesn't mean to not have any accountability within yourself.
Correct.
Towards yourself. That just means to not take it overboard.
Well, right, because we tend to imprison ourselves the very moment that we possibly can, because we're so used to it from other people.
Yes, the woe is me mindset, it comes with that
so
often.
Yeah, so I'm asking you to unplug yourself from those people that are literally plugging you up from being able to experience the real truth. Mm-hmm. The reason why plumbers unclog pipes is so that everything flows properly. So if things are not flowing properly in your life, you just need to be able to see who it is you're hanging around with, socializing with, and spending time with. And if you're not doing any of those 3, then the 4th thing that you're absent is God within you to be able to clearly, number 5, complete what you're wanting to complete in the first place.
Yeah, and to be able to understand this a little bit better, you can hang out and associate with people that are influencing you without actually being in their physical presence. The videos you watch, the movies you watch, the shows you watch, any type of media where you're seeing another person be a example, and you may not even realize it at the time, but you are subliminally taking on all of this visual, auditory, and sensory cues, yeah, exactly, that these people are setting the example right or wrong with. So understand that it's not just people who you may be very close friends with, but it very well could be the podcast you're listening to that's causing a blockage in your life. It very well could be the movies that you're watching that are causing some certain influence in your life that you didn't intend, but that's causing you to act a certain way.
Yeah, because if people are worldly, if they are not bringing forth authenticated truth, then everything is a falsified lie.
Right.
So you can't have truth and a lie simultaneously because they don't coexist.
Right. Lies often come with hints of truth, but that's only to make the lie even stronger.
Correct. And so we must be able to decide for ourselves, to be able to pick and choose the information that resonates well within us, to be able to have it be the gift that we give to another living human being.
Mm-hmm. Amen. And listeners, a great book on the power of understanding and active listening is The Four Agreements. Actually, the first book review I ever did on the channel, A New Way with Noah, is on the Four Agreements. And I'll just go over them real quick. The Four Agreements are: 1, be impeccable with your word. Make sure you're not saying things that you don't believe in, not saying lies. 2, don't take anything personally. 3, don't make assumptions which could cause you to act a certain way that is taking things personally, that is casting judgment on another person. And then 4, always do your best. Always live up to the potential that you understand that you have within you to be an example setter in other people's lives. So this has been a great podcast, Kevin. Thank you for all the wonderful hints of wisdom that you've accumulated over the years, especially from your wonderful, beautiful father. And listeners, on the next podcast, we're going to be continuing the Power Of series that we've just started with this podcast. And we're talking on the next podcast about the power of music. And this also has a lot to do with subliminal, subconscious influences that we experience and that we take on a daily basis. So understanding frequency and everything that goes into music. It's going to be a great podcast, and I look forward to meeting you there. Thank you for spending this half hour with Kevin and I today. Meet us at our website, inanewway.com, and we will look forward to meeting you on the next podcast.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.